everybody? I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking. Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Lazy Booking. No, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome, one and all, to another edition of Lazy Booking right here on A2DRadio.com, live from the BMW of Atlantic City Studios here in Mount Ephraim, New Jersey. And we are brought to you by Gibson Mayer LLC, your certified public accountants, located at 301 Oxford Valley Road in Yardley, PA. And you can give them a call at 215-369-3300. Well, the deadline is about to hit us, so just passed actually. So if you didn't get your taxes taken care of, ooh, I'd hate to be you. But at the end of the day, though, you can always start next year off on the right foot. So be ready, be prepared, and call Gibson Mayer.
That's right. If you got an extension, you better get on it now.
Yup.
Matty, that paper slam, man, just too sweet. Welcome, guys, to Lazy Booking live on A2D Radio. I am here. I am Chrome. I am here with Matty, as usual. We got Ryan Brodo on the ones and twos. We got a Sixers game on, guys, and a hot one. So if sporadic cheers and jeers happen to take place, I apologize in advance.
Sudden bursts of girl school giddy kicking in.
It is
It'll be because
very
of the
possible,
Sixers.
guys. Ryan's already like a little child, giddy, jumping.
I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm fine.
But, our Scanzano Sports poll question brought to us, obviously, by Scanzano Sports, scanzanosports.com. It's big week. Superstar Shakeup took place this week. Pretty simple. Who came out the winner of the Superstar Shakeup, Raw or SmackDown? We're going to talk that. We got a lot of news that happened this week. The passing of Bruno Sammartino, the drama that was Rusev Day every day, whether it's through TMZ, Twitter, and everything else in between.
It is finding society's cracks. It's seeping right through to everyone.
Yeah. And guys, I mean, I don't know if it's a sign that the world is about to end, but Channing Tatum broke up, and now John Cena and Nikki Bella broke up. There are a lot of females out there. The panties are dropping, guys.
So what you're saying is Nikki Bella's single.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. He was my best Miss Elizabeth. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk that. We're going to talk, whatever you guys want to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. Join us on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, wherever you're joining us. We appreciate it. So, guys, it's simple. Let's jump right into it. Lots of movement. Should I go through the list of who moved first, and then we'll get into who do you think won? Our list, a lot of names that moved, particularly to SmackDown, which needed the boost.
Yes.
So moving from SmackDown to Raw was Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, Zack Ryder, Baron Corbin, Jinder Mahal, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Mojo Rawley, Sunil Singh, Mike Kanellis, Breezango, The Ascension, Ziggler and McIntyre. You had the Riot Squad and Natalya. For SmackDown, you had Samoa Joe, you had Jeff Hardy, you had R-Truth, Miz, Big Cass, Gallows and Anderson, Sheamus and Cesaro, Asuka, and you had Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose. And also, who will be joining them, getting call-ups from NXT, are Sanity and Andrade Cien Almas, which I'm really pumped for that, by the way. And then, obviously, we had the premieres from before. We had Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. For Raw, we had Bobby Lashley. Oh, God, you guys are going to have to remind me now. My brain is fried from this Sixers game. Who do we have the week before? We had Bobby Lashley. We had
No, Drew McIntyre was this week. Never
we had
mind.
Jeff Hardy come back.
Jeff Hardy came back.
Moved. Samoa Joe came back.
Authors
he
of
moved.
Pain.
Authors of Pain. And Ember Moon.
Ember Moon,
dummy.
yes.
And No Way Jose.
No Way Jose.
Which I actually thought that his little promo this week with Jinder was pretty funny.
That was
funny. It was.
Yeah.
So, who do you guys have? Who won the Superstar Shakeup, guys?
Oh, man. That's tough because they gave facelifts to both shows. Really. I'm going to say SmackDown, only because SmackDown needed the support as much as possible. So I think they won just based on the fact that they got so much that they needed. Mm-hmm. Raw just kind of got more. But at the end of the day, though, is Raw going to fuck the booking up like they've done in the past with some of these guys? Mm-hmm. Because they did it last time with most of the call-ups.
Right. What do you have, Ryan?
I honestly think it's very simple. I think it's absolutely 100% SmackDown. Mm-hmm. You saw an improvement to their main event division with Samoa Joe. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they kept the likes of Nakamura, AJ Styles. I mean, I know it probably wasn't likely in our opinion, but there were rumors, AJ Styles is going to jump. Nakamura is going to jump. Mm-hmm. So they didn't lose anybody notable. So, and then they obviously acquire, a few extras as far as their women's division, obviously with Absolution, and then officially confirming that Asuka is back. And then this isn't technically the Superstar Shakeup, but with the additions of Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, that is obviously huge. And they kept Charlotte. So, I mean, that's big, and I was surprised.
I was surprised Charlotte stayed.
And especially Becky Lynch, I expected her to go as well.
See, Correct. It makes sense that they kept Charlotte only because now, because of what happened in Mania, they can do a rubber match between Asuka and Charlotte. Doesn't have to be for the belt because you have Carmella who's got the title. It's a great way for it not to immediately go back to Charlotte. You can actually have Asuka and Charlotte kind of have like that sort of the Finn Balor, Seth Rollins effect. It's a friendly but serious rivalry that they're taking, with each other.
In addition to that as well, then you look at the mid-card. Obviously, you have the addition of Andrade Cien Almas, to where I would guess, I think he could be a main event star, but in the imminent future, he's going to be a mid-carder because it's extremely rare for someone to come up and instantly be a main event guy. It's extremely rare, especially given going on the B show, because if WWE thought that much of someone, I feel like they'd bump him to the quote-unquote A show.
See, the thing about Almas is it's also hard because the problem with him, the only time they ever took a former luchador and made them a world champion, it was Alberto Del Rio. And the only time they ever could really do that was when he was a heel. They tried to do it once when he was a babyface, and that flopped immediately. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a little tough for Almas. I'm not saying it's impossible, though. With what's her face? What's her name? Selena Vega, right?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know how I forgot her name in 2 seconds.
How could you forget her name?
Selena
Vega.
Give me a break. Give me a break. All right, the Flyers are not doing that well. I'm a little worn out right now.
That's okay.
So anyway, with that being said, you can have her do what she did with NXT, because what I loved about his run was it was a great classic heel run. The Valet constantly interfered, and he constantly retained the title. Even though he's capable of winning a match himself, he didn't do it without her help. It's possible, but it's going to take a minute or two before you could sell that to the main audience.
Yeah. I'll kind of go down all the things that you guys listed there. I think definitely SmackDown overall is the winner, but I actually so it seems like they're shifting the direction of both shows.
Yeah.
What I felt like SmackDown needed names because their mid-card was not good, and their main event had the same 5 or 6 guys rotating for a year. It got very stale to where you had to have Kevin Owens and AJ Styles run a 4-month program, and then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn interacting with Shane McMahon, and then eventually Daniel Bryan, where that was dragged out for, really essentially since right after SummerSlam.
And they also made that a part of the whole, once again, getting back into the WWE title picture, because they then did the handicap match at the Royal Rumble. They did all those creative things to desperately try and prolong it to get to WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, they were scratching and clawing to get it there. But what I enjoyed about it, everybody that went from SmackDown to Raw was somebody that there's something there, but they needed a refresh. They needed new feuds. It was getting stale. Whether you love Jinder or not, I think this move will be strong for him, and he's going to have a lot of strong guys to work with on Raw. Go ahead.
I actually love that he made the move. I think we had talked about this last week. I was actually hoping he would move.
Right.
Just because we've seen the same old spiel with him. He would face Randy Orton in a one-on-one match. He'd face AJ Styles. And I understand, like we said, with the Superstar Shakeup, certain, superstars come over. So he could have been in other feuds on SmackDown, but it's kind of like he was in a position to where, A, he's red hot coming off of that, that United States title win. Have him go over.
Yeah.
Have him go over to Raw.
Right.
And then you could do whatever you want with him. You can have him lose it immediately like they did and have him be kind of a heel that is a snobbish heel making all the demands but loses it immediately.
Right.
Or you can make him dominant. And obviously with them going over to Saudi Arabia, I think they can do a lot with him. I really, truly do.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't keep the U.S. title on him because of that reason. But they decided, okay, we'll just take the belt off and put it on Jeff, which I'm perfectly fine with Jeff Hardy winning the U.S. title and going to SmackDown.
Everybody gets a Grand Slam title now.
Yeah.
I know.
Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy.
okay,
So I saw somebody put like an Oprah thing out.
Yes.
All right.
And it said, you get a Grand Slam championship and you get a Grand Slam championship.
All the workers get their Grand Slam championship.
Everybody gets a
officially.
Grand Slam championship.
And now here's my question, all right, with SmackDown Live, and I'm being dead serious. How is that only a 2-hour show? How are they going to –
It's going to be tough.
For me, in a way, and I know this will never happen, I feel like Raw should be 2 hours now because they lost a lot, and I understand why they did it. Because they want to have a lot of time left for, obviously, the Authority storyline, Kurt Angle, whatever he's doing, Ronda, whatever she's doing, whatever Brock's doing, and whatever Roman's doing. So they have pillars to where they – and then, obviously, the Diva storyline and the tag. That's going to be their quote-unquote 3 hours, but they're not going to rush through it. They're going to expand it.
Mm-hmm.
With SmackDown – what are they going to have, 13 matches? 13 storylines?
I mean, we'll have to see. My thing – so – and I'll get to that because that was a point that I wanted to absolutely touch on.
Well, the one other thing that does concern me, too, about SmackDown being 2 hours and having all these new wrestlers, because actually the rosters got bigger for both shows because of the call-ups and the extra additions on top of it and the comebacks because Big Cass returned at the end of the show. The point of that is that now the shows, the pay-per-views are going to be double branded. So now it's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
You have bigger rosters for both shows. You have double branded shows. Are you going to have to make the show 6 hours now?
No,
just to
no.
get the shit
No,
in?
and I have my whole theory behind all
All
that,
right.
too. Real quick. I'm just going to touch the few that we have on SmackDown. The few that we have on Facebook.
Facebook could be SmackDown since
Sure
it's
it
blue,
could
and
be.
YouTube since it has some right, and it could be
Absolutely.
Raw.
Over on SmackDown.
Yes.
Frank Vespi says, sorry to bother you at work. It's okay, Frank. We don't mind.
It's all right.
So if I didn't do my taxes, would Erwin R. Shyster come to my house and beat me up? Probably. But he said, but I did do my taxes.
Reportedly/allegedly.
Yeah. Mike Lipinski says, SmackDown won out in my opinion. Looking forward to Miz and Bryan. Me too. Kimberly Wallace joined us. Hi, Kimberly.
Hey, Kim.
Kimberly says, hi, guys.
Hey.
Is the invisible voice Brodo? Yes, it is.
Why,
It is him.
Why, yes, it is.
The one and
is.
only.
It is the heavenly voice of Brodo.
Yes.
Coming down from the heavens of A2D.
To soothe.
I am here.
Yeah, I have arrived.
To soothe everyone.
And my mother joined us as well.
Aw.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hello,
But-
Mrs. Crow.
Yeah, but so I think this is going to be good for Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. You're going to get a different view. I think that they will, at some point, complete the turn of Kevin Owens to face. Sami Zayn as a heel with all these fresh rivalries to work with is going to be really good. I think that the NXT call-ups were very fitting there. And this is what I like about – so it was a little bit – it was a hit for Raw in a sense of less names, right? Like not quite main event level names as opposed to a huge influx that went to SmackDown. But what I'm seeing is on their end, I think that they're going to make the push now to build younger talent, to build these guys who didn't have enough of a time slot on SmackDown. You have the extra hour to work with to give these guys like a Jinder Mahal. I don't know about Mama. My mom said hi, and Kimberly Wallace said hi, Mama Crow. On Raw, and you're going to have that opportunity now to let these guys work with Finn Balor and Seth Rollins in fresh feuds with more time to develop their characters now.
You go ahead. Finish up.
Well, no, and I think that people like Ember Moon, obviously No Way Jose, they already have him interacting with someone like Jinder. Like they're taking more of an initiative to give, and this is just how it appears. We'll see how it books. But it looks like they're going to take the initiative to give that spot to where all these guys who were stuck with no time on SmackDown, they now have it on Raw.
And that's the problem that you run into because, unfortunately, a lot of the issues that are coming into play here is that you have 2 shows. You have one that's 3 hours. You have one that's 2 hours. And the other issue that runs into that is there's really no B shows besides main event, which is 1 match long.
Right.
On top of that is 205 Live, and that is strictly for the cruiserweights. So you've found yourself kind of like, well, there's no Sunday Night Heat. There is no Velocity. So where are we going to put these guys? And then that's the issue you run into when you don't have B shows.
Yeah.
So now it's a good thing that Raw is going to take that time to say, you know what? All right, we're going to focus on getting these young guys over. We're going to focus on trying to build them up. And for a guy like Jinder Mahal, like Ryan was saying, hoping that he would move, it's perfect for him because, unfortunately, when he went to SmackDown, it was limited roster, and he just won the WWE title right the fuck out of nowhere, and then everybody hated it immediately, and they did the race thing, and then they did the anti-American thing, and then Randy Orton was the babyface, and Randy Orton is the most boring human being in the ring.
Oh, I love Randy.
It just did not appeal to me personally from the very get-go.
Most people that is not appealing to, so
Yeah.
I'm more in the minority than you are.
Now, here's a question for you guys. No, go ahead.
But case in point, look at the spot they already gave to Drew McIntyre.
Yes.
And for all the people who love Dolph Ziggler, I'm not one of them. I mean, the guy's a great worker. I'll never take it away, but I think it went to his head that he oversells everything to the point where it's annoying to me now.
He does
but
Shawn Michaels.
Everything is wrestling is a game of copycat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Years later, they recycle. It's Shawn Michaels and Diesel all over again. And you know what? For guys who at the time were kind of building for Diesel, Kevin Nash, who was floundering in WCW, that gave him a spot to build. Also, for a guy like DZ, who's kind of stuck in a middle spot at this point, he has Drew McIntyre to work off of. And then at some point, it's going to come and turn, and they're going to work with each other. I think it's huge for both of them.
You know what? And I'm glad you looked at it that way. And I hope you're right. I hope it has mirroring images of that down the line. When I saw McIntyre debut, I thought to myself, they're retrying what they did with Big E Langston.
I didn't see that at all.
Well, I mean, Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, I hear you.
Quote unquote. I'm not going to call him a bodyguard, but a much bigger, tougher guy comes in as backup for Dolph Ziggler. All we need is AJ. That's all we need.
My God, I forgot all about that era. And
that was in Philadelphia. I was at that Raw when Big E debuted and attacked Cena for Ziggler.
Was that the one? Were you the one guy that yelled Big E? Because there was like one guy that reacted.
No, it wasn't me. No, it definitely wasn't me.
And AJ Lee was with them, too.
Yep. That was AJ Lee, yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot all about that era. Well, actually, I wanted to forget about that. That was not the best era for WWE
but Kim says, whoa, back off Shawn Michaels. We love Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is our dude. Although he looks like creepy Uncle Shawn now with his haircut. But
he looks like freaking...
I digress.
Oh, what are people saying online? He looks like Adam Cole?
Baby!
He does kind of look like what Adam Cole's going to look like when he gets older.
There was a meme online when he had that NXT, obviously, interview. And they were saying, "Oh, Shawn Michaels cut his hair so he wouldn't look like Adam Cole anymore."
maybe with a terrible, much more worse hairline.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I look at that and I see that that's a huge spot that he's going to be in. Ember Moon is clearly going to get a push. So I'm looking forward to seeing these younger, or I don't want to say retread, but repackaged talents coming in now and getting that opportunity.
Now, here's a question for you guys. For both shows, for Raw and SmackDown, what was your favorite and least favorite introduction for a superstar coming into a new show?
What, the least favorite and the best favorite? Okay. Well, the way they introduced Baron Corbin on Raw, where they just said, "Oh, he's here now," like that's pretty bad. Like, I mean, you could have at least tried to do something.
One of your main event talents on SmackDown. They just said, "Hey, he's coming."
Oh, the Lone Wolf. Oh, that's right. Remember when he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal
3 years ago?
That's why you should be excited. We didn't do anything with him, but
we're totally going to skip over the fact he won a U.S. title, and he also won a Money in the Bank and lost his Money in the Bank in the same year. Like, My God.
I mean, for me, it was Drew McIntyre. I thought that he came in and for everything that he was before, the Chosen One, and then the three-man band, which is ironic that all three of them are now back on Raw together.
Great.
It could happen.
But the three-man band, that was a gimmick that was a meme that somebody shared too.
Oh, it was all over the place.
We're gonna get the band back together, and it had a picture of them before and a picture of them now.
Dude, I could see it now. They go get Gregory Helms, Shannon Moore, Evan Courageous, and do the 3 count versus the 3-man band. And here we go, baby. Monday Night Raw, main event.
It could happen. It could totally happen.
That's lazy booking.
That is lazy as shit booking. But I mean, I just love the way that they brought him in. You know, if you saw what he was doing as far as when he was wrestling around the world and when he was wrestling in Impact Wrestling, he built himself as a not gimmicky guy, just a strong, kick-ass dude, right? Came into NXT. All intents and purposes, it was a brief run because he wasn't there for long. He got hurt, and they essentially brought him back. Mm-hmm. But he came in, and he just looked like that guy who, like, that's what I think they want Big Cass to be. But he's already got the pedigree to do it. You know, Cass will get there. I am not a guy who a lot of people hate Cass. David Rosca says Big Cass needs to be WWE champion. I think that day will come in the coming years. Not soon, but in years. I don't think he's quite there yet.
He's another guy. Remember when we were going back and forth on, like, the Paul Heyman guy, you know, who would really need him?
He would be good.
I didn't even think of him because he's been on the shelf.
Yeah.
He might be at the top of my list. Like, out of, you know, except for guys like Nakamura, to where right now I don't even want him with Paul Heyman because what he's doing at the moment, I love.
Brilliant.
Just the same thing every time that he's saying.
That AJ Nakamura exchanges that are going down right now are absolutely brilliant.
Because
absolutely brilliant.
They're
for a guy that can't speak the language perfectly, you're utilizing that to the most perfect level that you could.
You know what they're doing finally? And I understand they weren't going to do this when he was a good guy because they had to bring it up. Oh, he's the artist. Oh, he's all of that stuff that they don't know how to book with a baby face. When it comes down to him being a heel, they're booking him as a cold-blooded killer that is a snark on the mic. That's literally what he is. He's going to break. He's going to be so much of a troll when he's on the mic and being interviewed. But when he's in the ring, he doesn't care at all.
He's ruthless. And like the mouth guard, just the way the mouth guard kind of looks with his facial expressions now, where he has, it's almost like what was corny before. You know, when you're hitting a low blow and you're just kind of slowly kind of like, it just has like a sinister look.
And he goes for that low blow every time.
I love
That's
it.
like his signature move.
Slow blows, man. I love it. Greg says he's at Malakovic. He joined us real quick. He said, I'm out of date, so I can't answer the poll. But enjoy, boys. Greg always is behind. He watches it like late in the week.
I was talking to him last night before AM and the PM, and I said, you know, have you caught up yet? He says, I'm behind on both shows. I'm like, have you been spoiled yet? He's like, no. I said, how have you been on your phone? How have you avoided it? We're in the middle of a show and we got spoiled. You know what I'm saying, on Tuesday.
David Rosca. No, it's okay, Rosca. There was a lot more that happened, so you're good. He didn't spoil Bobby Roode for me, which
because we were off the air by then.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
How do you feel about Bobby going to
I like it.
Raw?
I like it. I don't know how they're going to place him yet, but for them to throw him in immediately with that big of talent and as being the feature debut at the end of this show does tell me that they have a plan for him. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how well it's going to be executed, but I liked that. I did like that debut. I just felt like the Drew one overshadowed it a little bit.
See, I liked the fact that they're putting him in that main event area, but what I would have loved to have seen, whether he was on Raw or SmackDown is irrelevant, I would actually like to see him at some point turn heel. And the reason why is because that's what he's best at. Bobby Roode, as great and as awesome, he's been great as a babyface, but he is so much better as a heel. For me to see him as a future world champion, he has to be a heel.
That is one of those cases. That's the classic Vince kind of having the old school mentality and being out of touch. Because we talked about it before. There was the whole conversation before he came up. They were talking about changing his music because Vince felt like the music's so over that you can't debut him as a heel. He has to be a face. So, and then, sure enough, when he debuted, randomly 2 weeks after NXT TakeOver, when he dropped the belt to Drew, all of a sudden he's a face. He comes in and cuts a babyface promo, and it's like, what?
2 questions. Number one, is it true that that music that Bobby Roode has now was originally billed for Nakamura?
Correct, yep.
Oh,
Thank God they did not go with that.
It worked out both ways.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
And then the second, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. I was actually, I wanted Bobby Roode on Raw, like we talked about last week. I was actually kind of disappointed the way they did it. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I understand they see him as a babyface because of the music. But I knew, what was it, a 10-man tag in that main event? I went back a few years ago because they usually do this to where when a bunch of guys come into a new show, someone betrays someone.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
it ended
yeah,
up
yeah.
being the friggin' Miz to Raj, who I guess they're going to be off TV for 6 months because I don't know what they can do.
Well, I think the
Tag
thing,
team push, man.
I mean, yeah, there's that. But at the end of the day, too, also, it's just like, well, Miz was going to SmackDown, so it's kind of like, well, they can't really do anything with the Miz now since they're not going with him.
True,
But
absolutely.
And again, that's another example of giving guys who haven't really had the opportunity to have a spot a shot at a spot because they took the bar off of Raw, and they have spots to fill as far as the tag division, and they took Gallows and Anderson off of Raw. So now you could slide the Miz to Raj, who's, for all intents and purposes, right now is over. Give them an opportunity to build on what the momentum they have.
I just hope they don't make them like the next J&J Security because that's kind of what they were to the Miz.
Yeah, but they were
unfortunately.
so much better than
they
J&J
were.
was for Seth.
But they did have mirroring, comparisons for the most part. But what I would have liked to see happen with Bobby Roode was if he were to portray Finn Balor and they would go into a feud. Because I'm thinking to myself, all right, if he's going to betray someone, he's not going to go after Strowman because he'd be a friggin' idiot. And Braun Strowman would demolish Bobby Roode, and it'd be like, okay, welcome to Raw, you're buried. He's not going to go up against Bobby Lashley because he's new.
Well, and we've seen them feud numerous times over the last 4 or 5 years on Impact.
Exactly.
And at this point, when you're introducing somebody to what it's almost like they have this mentality like if you watch SmackDown, you don't watch Raw, and vice versa. But it's like, okay, we have to reintroduce this guy. We're not going to have him work with a guy that we're also reintroducing to the fan base.
Yeah.
And that's smart. Like I don't like the idea right now. I mean, maybe at this point you can work it, but I didn't even like the idea of Joe mentioning AJ Styles on SmackDown because for years we saw it. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't a great feud over time, but it's been a while, I guess, for them to work together, and they are on totally different levels now. I wish that they could get their hands on the library from TNA because if they could put that on the network and have people kind of see what that was like and then build to a feud to where that can also promote the network, that would be freaking awesome. Which, by the way, side note, I don't know if you heard this, the new Hardy's DVD that's coming out,
Okay.
they have added footage from TNA. From the Broken Hardy run. So I don't know what that means.
I was going to say, if anything, that might be one of their, TNA or whatever the hell they're called. That might be one of the most valuable pieces of video they own at the moment. So if they get that for a DVD,
good Lord.
Well,
you get the whole you get the complete Kurt Angle collection. You get the almost complete, with the exception of New Japan for a year and a half with AJ. You get almost the whole entire Samoa Joe, like all your big guys that you have come, Bobby Roode.
just get me
There it
2005 to 2010, and I'll go to bed after that.
The smart thing, and that would be the smart thing for WWE to do. Because here's the thing, Impact Wrestling, they don't really have any money now. They've lost almost all their money. So what's the best way for them to get any funds? If WWE just immediately calls them and says, hey, we'll give you money. We just want to have access to your video library.
Right.
And that's the perfect way because then
Well, Anthem is too much of douchebags right now. I hate Anthem Sports.
Yeah, but at the
They've
same
killed that
time,
company.
though, in the end, though, to be able to see the footage of the other guys who at least be able, not to necessarily put on the network, but to at least have the highlights of their rivalries in DNA so that they don't just have to glance over them. at least you can have that so you fill the gaps for those who were not watching TNA, and there's probably a hefty load of people who weren't watching TNA because anybody with sanity was not watching that show for the longest time. Yeah. It's just, in my opinion, it would be the easiest thing for WWE to do. They can easily just say, okay, here's like $10,000.
Yeah.
We'll have access to it. I don't give a shit. Like, seriously.
You gotta read.
I don't even know what the hell.
I don't know either.
What?
I don't even know what that last comment means, Kim.
No.
She puts. I love the Miz. Can't stand his wife. How does he deal with her all the time? Kim, I'm just gonna say this. Have you looked at her? Look at her Playboy shoot. I know you look at things a little differently than we do in that aspect. Her Playboy shoot tells the story. Mm-hmm. She says, fun fact, I hung out with Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Road Warriors when I was 13 at an event for Ben Salem's Shield of Cop program. That's awesome. I don't know if you heard, but Hacksaw also did the intro, one of the intros for our show, I can imagine that story's fantastic because Hacksaw is a wonderful human being. I had the chance to work with him during an autograph signing. Fantastic guy. And then she says, Chrome, you sound like an infomercial. And she says, hi, Rob. I don't even know what that means when I sound like an infomercial, Kim. You'll need to break that down for me.
Explain yourself
right
now.
Well, before she explains herself, we do have the comments on the YouTube.
We'll do that in 2 seconds. I'm just going to read Rob's too because
go right ahead.
Because I have to do it for Rob.
Yeah, of course.
Rob says, yes, delete Impact Wrestling. And he says, all hail King Maxwell. That was it. Now you can jump to it.
All right, then. So David Raska is the first one chiming in here on the YouTube.
Raska.
What's up, David? He's saying, I'm ready for next Friday Greatest Royal Rumble.
We are going to talk about that in the second half, too, on YouTube.
You know, they should just put ever at the end of that just because, just for emphasis. Anyway.
Well, then they
just in case you didn't get the great.
Yeah. Well, Maddie.
Ever at the end.
If they haven't already gotten themselves into a little bit of a pickle, if you throw the word ever in there, well, then they might as well never say,
never have a Rumble
year,
again.
Yes, because they're Michael Cole is going to be, this is the biggest Royal Rumble of all time, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, when they had the 40-man, they kept saying that. The biggest Royal Rumble of all time.
If you add the word ever to this, Maddie, they're going to have to go 60 next year, and then 70, 80.
And is that such a bad thing to see eventually 100 men go?
WCW did do World War III.
Okay, and WCW has been gone for almost 20 years.
Okay, that is not the fault of the World War III match. That is all on Vince Russo and the fact that Eric Bischoff couldn't see 5 years down the road.
Well, guess what? That match did not save anything.
No, it did not, but still, I'm just saying.
Kimberly said I sounded like an infomercial because I was saying – you were like, you get the complete this and the complete that. I guess we're talking about you get the complete set together for only $9.99 on the WWE Network. She is right. I did talk about if you get the network, you get the complete collection of AJ Styles and the complete collection of Bobby Roode, and you complete the Samoa Joe collection. She is right. I agree with that. You're right. You're right. I'll give you that.
Are you selling ShamWows in your free time?
So that guy's a dick, by the way. Is he?
Have you met him too?
Guy? I won't mention what capacity, but he was a client of a former employer that I worked for, and he was a dick.
Oh God.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, then
but
screw the ShamWow.
His product's pretty great, though.
Okay, then I like the ShamWow.
Yeah, well, them's are the breaks, I guess.
Hit that YouTube.
All right, so Frank Ironreich chiming in says, are we only talking wrestling tonight? I think so.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
Thursday is our night for lazy booking. Although you will probably hear – Ryan, we got to get that shit off the screen.
I don't know how
you will probably hear sporadical leaps and – well, the other mouse works, right?
All right,
I'll go over there.
All right, you know what? We might as well just go full bore with this. Let's give a scoring update. It is 52-50
Wait, Dario's
Heat.
on the line. Dario, and he hit that one.
All right, so it's 52-51 right
51,
now.
yeah. But yes, Thursday is our lazy booking show, as well as Hockey Happy Hour. It's I mean, if you want to mention something else, I'll pop in a quick 2-minute response to it. But we are trying to keep it wrestling related, unless it correlates with a sports thing correlates. Like right now, how Joel Embiid is slightly representing the Undertaker mask from back in the day.
I was going to say he's dressed like a wrestling character.
Yeah.
The Phantom of the Opera Taker.
Phantom of the Process.
He's kind of dressed like his mask kind of looks like the Executioner from back in the day.
Oh.
Wait a minute. Are we talking the Executioner from WrestleMania 1?
I don't even remember what he looks
like.
I'm talking about the one who worked
by the way,
Buried Alive with The Undertaker.
Who, by the way, lost to Tito Santana in the first ever WrestleMania match.
That was the opening match. That's right.
Yep.
Fucking jobber match. Where's the Executioner now? Yeah, exactly.
Well, what was it? That wasn't even his gimmick. I think it was like Buddy Rose or somebody who was under that mask. By the way, what a terrible way to use an actually good talent. By the way,
what a terrible way to use a guy who's not a good talent in Tito Santana by booking him for a win to open the WrestleMania legacy.
Anyway.
But I digress.
By the way, actually no. One last thing too, because I had a chance to watch the Andre the Giant documentary.
Yes.
At what point did you hit the ceiling when you heard the name Tito Santana? Because Tim White does mention his name in that documentary.
All right. So I was watching it, and I was talking to myself because I was watching it to myself. But when he says Andre's sitting there and he was playing cards with Tito Santana, I said, of course he's fucking playing cards with Tito Santana. It's about all he's good for. Literally, I had this outburst of course fucking Tito's sitting there playing cards. God forbid he's making himself better, doing any kind of calisthenics and yoga and making himself a better human being. He's sitting like a fucking scumbag playing cards. I mean, Andre's awesome, but Tito's a scumbag.
Well, Kim, I think Chrome has graduated from the infomercial. I really, truly, I think he's gone heel.
No. Well, he's been heel on Tito. We've known this for
yes, trust me.
time.
Yes.
We're gonna allow her to ask the one hockey question, and we're gonna defer it to you because she asked, "Can we get a hockey question in?" So,
sure.
Kim, go ahead. Whatever you're. We're going to run the YouTube down. Get your question in, and Maddie will answer it for you. Maddie's our hockey guy.
David Rosca continuing to chime in. What's up, boys? SmackDown Live is better than Raw. Raw is stupid. For the most part, tragically, yes. Moving on.
With that, like when I was talking about Raw, and I still didn't give my full SmackDown analysis, but I'll get to it. That's not important right now. Just keep an open mind with Raw.
Well, now
we're so used to being so heavy on main event talent. I really, truly believe that they're going to do things the right way and build the talent up on there. So for everything we've asked for, I would keep an eye on it and not leave it open for judgment at this point.
Ice cream truck.
Oh, yeah.
All right, excuse me, guys. Be right back.
We got Sixers. We got ice cream. We got Superstar Shakeup. We got hockey questions coming.
It's getting really strange in here.
It's
getting really weird.
Guys, you know what? Right. We go off the rails sometimes.
Oh, dude.
That's how we do.
Back to Frank. He says, how about the NFL schedule today? Okay, well, speaking of going offhand, I guess you could throw in your 2 cents onto that one.
We don't know yet officially.
Yeah, we don't know the whole official thing. What I will tell you is check out AM and the PM on Sunday. I don't want to talk about something until I have an official look at it, and I'm not going to be getting it during the show. I will say that I'm fine with them opening against Atlanta. I think the game in London is going to be very interesting. I think it was a good choice. I think they picked 2 good teams. They needed a strong game. The London games stink every time they go. Mm-hmm. So having 2 good teams from both conferences, I like that idea, and it'll be a good test for us.
The one thing I'll say, the first 2 games that we know of, that's official, is obviously at home versus the Falcons on Thursday, and then traveling to Tampa Bay, the next week. I like it because it's not atrocious. You know what I mean? It's not like we have to go, against the Atlanta Falcons week 1 and then have to go to LA, for example, week 2. Mm-hmm. The Buccaneers, they're a fine team, but I'm not scared to death.
Right. So there's a lot of shows on this station, guys. We're all going to break it down. Yep. AM and the PM not AM and the PM's Wednesdays. Agree to Disagree is going to be on Sunday. Sports Hounds is on Monday. Lazy. I can't even remember my own damn shows now. Birds of a Feather is going to be, which is primarily an Eagles talk show. Mm-hmm. We talk other sports, but that'll be on Tuesday. We'll talk about that. The Fix, that Ryan is one of the hosts on The Fix. And AM and the PM finally getting that one right on Wednesdays. We're going to I'm sure this week we're going to break down a lot of the schedule.
Don't worry.
Along with Sixers talk, along with Flyers talk. Hockey Happy Hour is going to be next. Kim's question, Rob says female wrestling fans are awesome with the emoji with the hard eyes. I agree with that, Rob. Rob, you got it right. Tom also chimed in, said, "What up, boys? What up? Thomas Kennedy McMahon, my man.
What's up, man?"
So Kim's question about hockey, and then we'll jump back into wrestling. She said,
right.
and actually it is something we can all answer. She says, okay, so y'all were all, I don't care how we get to Broad when I argued about LeBron. So would you take Crosby if it guaranteed a walk down Broad? Absolutely.
100%.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, we hate the fuck out of him because he's a Pittsburgh Penguin. But if he was in a Flyers jersey, we'd put up with him being a crying little bitch. He's our crying little bitch. That would be the way it is. I mean, let's be honest. When Eric Lindros was the captain of the team,
Eric Lindros was a dick.
he was not afraid to express his feelings emotionally on multiple occasions. But we loved him because he was scoring goals for the Flyers and helping the team get to the playoffs every year. So why did we care?
Listen, in the history of sports, we had Mike Schmidt. We had guys like Schmidt. We had guys like Allen Iverson. We had guys like Eric Lindros, who outside of this city were very polarizing people that were not even McNabb in later years. You found out it was kind of like that, but who outside of this city, people hated them. I'd take McNabb out of that, but people did not like them. Okay, and didn't want them on. You could say, oh, they didn't want to, but they would take them on their team in their primes if they had the chance, and it has a chance to get you to Broad or wherever you were at, Market Street and wherever you live. So yeah, absolutely, you take him. I mean, I don't have to like everybody on my team. All right, outside of a guy who's like a criminal, who has that kind of a history.
The Eagles have had a few.
Right. But I mean, outside of that, to where they've also had guys like Michael Vick, who's reprised himself.
This is true.
Outside of that kind of issue where they're coming in and that can disrupt the locker room, if it's a guy I just hate him because he's that damn good, I want him on my team. I want the best player, and I love it or hate it, he's the best player in the world right now.
As long as he gets results and he's not a cancer in the locker room, you take him any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Absolutely. All right, let's get back to wrestling.
All right. So, Why Society Wrestling chiming in. SDL, SmackDown Live, one hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Raw got the jobbers. Now, I wouldn't say they got the jobbers.
Well, they did get Zack Ryder
they
and
got
Mojo
Zack
Rawley.
Ryder. Yeah, and they got Mojo Rawley. But at the
and
same
Dolph Ziggler.
Well,
And the Ascension.
I love the Ascension and Breezango, though. I love that they gave Breezango the W on Raw.
yes, that was great that they did that. That was awesome. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that at all. That was awesome.
As soon as I saw that, I knew the bar were going to SmackDown. It was the only way that they could have made that make sense because they obviously will be, not defending, but they'll be going for the tag titles at the greatest Royal Rumble
ever.
Yeah, I had to have the ever now. So it's the only way they could have spun it to make it make sense.
We need that now. Hashtag ever.
Hashtag ever. What I don't like about this is they're now moving. They moved guys ahead of time where you essentially kind of know what's going to happen, unless Seth's defending the Intercontinental title, correct?
In a fatal 4-way. This is where it really
Ladder
makes no
match.
sense. Ladder match with, I believe
Joe.
It's Joe who's on another show.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Finn, and I think it's Hardy.
Who's the U.S. champion?
No, Matt Hardy.
Oh, okay.
No, Matt Hardy's a tag.
Jeff.
No.
So it is Jeff.
Well, Jeff's
Who is
not
the
in that
US
because
champion?
Jeff.
No,
is
it's the
defending
Miz.
against
I'm
Jinder.
sorry, it's
Yeah.
the Miz.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say.
So there's two guys on Raw.
But here's what I could see.
Okay.
I could see Jinder winning the title back and taking it to Raw, and then I could see Seth losing it in the ladder match to somebody on SmackDown.
So they do a double flip.
Correct. Then
Oh,
you could
God,
get. Then you could get
Wow.
Daniel Bryan and Miz for the Intercontinental title, something along those lines. So, in that sense, I think they've left it open that anything can still happen.
Wow.
And I do believe, obviously, if one title moves, the other one's going to move to somebody on the other show.
So Rollins' Intercontinental title run will be right up there with Kane's, his 2 runs, and Albert's, and everybody else who had the belt for 2 weeks and then lost it.
Kimberly says, ever and ever.
The
Greatest Royal Rumble ever and ever.
Next year's greatest Royal Rumble is going to be ever and
It's just
ever.
gonna be ever
and then
ever.
in 3 years, it's going to be ever and ever and ever.
It's just going to be like ever, and then like kind of
No.
how they do where they have the numbers behind WrestleMania. They'll just put like a times 1, times or
No,
times 2,
they'll-
times whatever.
They'll early 2000s it. They'll do Ever X2,
Yeah.
Ever X3.
By the way, and I believe this was on SmackDown when they said it. when they were talking about, and they said it numerous times. No, they said it on both shows. When they were talking about the greatest Royal Rumble ever, they kept bringing up that it was one of the biggest shows of all time, WWE shows.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't want to speed up with this, and you could say, hey, we'll save it. I think that guarantees that Roman wins.
Yeah, I think we'll save that, but I don't think that you're out of the realm of the ballpark there either. But with that last comment, again, just leave it open. I know it seems like a lot of guys who were quote-unquote jobbing or not getting airtime were on SmackDown, but that's why you make the move. I think that Raw is going to push some of these guys and who have earned the opportunity to be highlighted on a show.
Yeah, and here's one thing I really didn't like about that show last week. The Authors of Pain, they came out and they had their rematch with Heath Slater and Rhino, and they actually were selling for Rhino and Heath Slater, and on multiple occasions it looked like Rhino and Heath Slater were going to get the better of them. Now, I'm no booking expert, but I can tell you this much. When you're trying to, sell me on a team that's dominant and is physically imposing, you never have a jobber team make them look like they just got out of the fight of their lives. Right. I'm just saying, that's the one thing I really hated about that show. I'm like, you just made the Authors of Pain look pretty goddamn weak when you have them getting a little beat up by Heath Slater and Rhino. They should have just squashed them. I'm just saying, I hate to say it, but Rhino, Heath Slater, they're the squash team. Am I missing something? Like, you want to sell the Authors of Pain. Don't do that. Do not do that.
Well, listen, they got to make Heath look strong for when they reunite the three-man band.
This is true. That's why Ginger's going to win the belt back at the greatest Royal Rumble, #ever. And then they're going to go fish out, what was the other member's name? It was Heath Slater, Jinder Mahal.
Drew McIntyre.
Drew McIntyre, yeah. And then Drew, he's going to, ditch Dolph, and then he's going to join up with them.
After 1 week.
And then they're going to...
He's going to win the Cruiserweight title. They're all going to be champions.
Did you see, by the way, not to change topics fully, so I saw this on, I think it was on the YouTube page for 205 Live. I actually really like that they're doing this because they're trying to make it, real. They had a exclusive, internet, segment with, what's Rockstar Spot called?
Oh, Drake Maverick.
Drake Maverick. I'm sorry, I always refer to him as Rockstar.
It's all right. Nobody's caring about 205 Live, so it's
I actually think it's getting better.
I haven't watched it, but from all intents and purposes, from what I've heard from people who weren't watching it before, it's getting a lot better now. I'm considering
the crowd is a lot better as well. It's not dead anymore.
Yeah, well, I'm considering putting on. I've never watched a full episode of it. I never even watched an episode until Austin Aries was on there.
Oh, wow.
Let me see, the last
and then after he was gone and Neville was gone, but I never watched a whole episode.
The last time I watched a whole episode, Enzo Amore was Cruiserweight champion. So it's been a little bit.
Ooh.
It's been a minute.
Here's what I like about 205 Live and why I'm potentially even considering going back and starting to watch it. The Cruiserweight division is a division known less for storylines and more for workers. And they're not on Raw as much, so the storylines are not saturating the show. You're not having Cedric Alexander and Alicia Fox with what the hell was his name?
Noam
Dar. You don't have a lot of that crap going on anymore. And for what Enzo was a mouthpiece, and Enzo is a guy who's a huge figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a detriment to the overall brand because it becomes about Enzo and not about the rest of the show.
That is true.
I don't think it's by accident, or I don't think it's by chance that now they've gotten away from the storylines. Now they've gotten out of that over the top character to where the wrestling is speaking for it. And I like Drake Maverick as a guy, or I call him Rockstar Spud too.
Yeah.
As a guy to come in and kind of solidify the quote-unquote GM role and all that stuff. I think it's been very well done since the tournament. And we all know, too, when it comes to a division, doesn't matter who it is, a tournament, whether it's for a title or for, introducing new people, it's always been something that's drawn attention to something throughout the history of wrestling. So
Yeah, I mean, the major goal now is they have a real great chance to kind of rebrand it and just say, okay, everything we did in the last couple of years, fucking forget it.
Well, a couple things. Number one, when 205 Live first debuted and it started, and then when it started to evolve into the Enzo Amore show, to me, it was just a big, gigantic comedy skit. That's what it was, to where Jack Gallagher was out there with the friggin' Tea Party segment.
I mean, his promo was pretty damn epic when he ran the whole division
Oh,
down.
yeah.
It was great to watch, but it killed
Long
it
term,
killed
it's
so much. Yeah,
screwed everything.
It was awful for the division because nobody else, other than Drew Gulak, who totally got himself over with it.
Yes.
And I loved Gulak's role in that. It was not good for the rest of the division.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Triple H is running that now, correct?
I'd have to see. I'm not sure.
I hope so.
I think that's why it's
No,
switched.
Drake Maverick is running.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
You're right. You're
Rockstar
right.
Spud.
Yes, you're right.
is
I'm sorry.
running
You're right.
this.
You're right.
And Jim Velasco from the Lucha Underground podcast,
very cool.
Mats and Mayhem, has chimed in. He says 205 Live started getting better after they got rid of Enzo.
Yep.
Not even joking. They felt they needed to step up.
Mm-hmm.
100%. I was totally tuned out when Enzo was on that show.
The problem with 205 Live for a long time was it had a huge identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't know what it wanted it to be. It was, oh, it's going to be funny because you're going to build up these superstars so you can like them, but it's not going to be serious. Or it's like, you're going to like these guys because they can flat out go in the ring.
Right.
And that's exactly what these guys are.
That's what it was in WCW. I mean, you had a main storyline. Like at the time, Jericho in the list. The original list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he did have talking segments with guys like a Dean Malenko or Juventud Guerrero. But it wasn't like we got to get everyone in the division. The rest of the matches were the workers. I don't recall any kind of a crazy in-depth storyline involving a La Parka, who everyone loved La Parka, the chairman.
Yeah, that's true. And all he had to do was show up to do a spot for, like, what, every other Nitro and Thunder
or
and
Psychosis,
and a
right.
pay-per-view. You know, they literally would go down to Mexico, do their shit there weekly, come up and do 2 spots a week for WCW, and that was it.
And
they
it was
didn't
over.
Need to do anything.
It was incredibly over. And I don't think that that's like a lost art anymore. I just think we're so programmed now to having to see these ridiculous storylines at times. Some are great, some are ridiculous, that it takes away from the in-ring product.
Well, the thing about that is that the two, and to get back to WCW, there were 3 moments where they did any kind of storylines. They had Eddie Guerrero when he was the major heel of the division, and he had his Rey Mysterio feud, which led to probably one of the greatest cruiserweight matches, possibly of all time, at Halloween Havoc. And anyone who's not seen that, please treat yourself. That is one of the greatest matches that's ever been done. On top of that, then they did the Chris Jericho one, and I believe there was another one involving Eddie Guerrero. But you notice the point. Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, 2 guys that can talk.
And work in the ring.
And work in the ring at the same time.
So what they did on this past week of 205 Live, they cut to a backstage segment involving Maverick and Buddy Murphy and a referee. They had him do a live weigh-in, basically, making sure he was under 205.
Nice. I like that.
And he failed it. He was 207.
Nice.
So
I like
he
that.
was automatically disqualified. I don't know if it's a battle royal. The cruiserweights are doing something
right
at the greatest Royal Rumble ever in a couple weeks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he was disqualified from it.
I love it.
And they had him go crazy. And he even went in depth by saying, oh, give me an hour so I can lose the weight and I'll come back. And Maverick's like, no, you know the rules. It has to happen right now. So it's almost like they bring up a little UFC element to it.
Yeah.
So I really, really like that.
Like they legitimize it a little bit.
Yep.
Speaking of the chairman, Thomas Kennedy McMahon Arnone has just walked through.
And, yeah, so, I mean, it's a great chance for 205. I mean, unfortunately, everything that could have gone wrong for this show right from the get-go went wrong. They put a lot of stock into T.J. Perkins, and that didn't get over. And then neither did Kendrick as a heel. And then on top of that, they had Neville, who was a good heel, but unfortunately he wasn't exactly the most charismatic human being in the whole world. Great matches, though. Wonderful matches. And then they had Austin Aries.
I loved Kendrick, by the way.
Kendrick as a heel?
I liked the way they brought him back. I thought it was one of his better characters he ever had with the company. I didn't like Kendrick and London as a tag team. They drove. I don't know why. I just didn't buy into them.
And then on top of that, too, then they had Austin Aries, and they totally botched everything they wanted to do with Aries.
They botched Aries.
You know, and that killed it, because if they had done the right thing with Aries and they had actually booked that properly and given him the belt, it would have been like, okay, we wouldn't really have as many problems with 205 and wouldn't have had to resort to Enzo Amore coming down to try and do something with that show.
Dion says, and thanks, Dion, by the way, for dropping the first couple games of the Eagles season. He says, being born after 78, I'm a huge fan of the 80s and 90s and the Attitude Era of wrestling. Some shows today's do not hold my attention. I get it. It's a different product. Every generation has been. We all love the Attitude Era. We talk about it all the time, though. If you actually try to go back and watch it, it doesn't stand the test of time, aside from the main event.
Well, yeah, I mean if you look at the mid-card,
Tag was pretty good, too.
That was actually the best era for tag wrestling, because you had the Hardys, the Acolytes, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys. The singles matches kind of lacked.
The women
that lacked too, for the most part.
Well, you had good workers like an Ivory
and Molly
Holly, but you also had the gimmicky evening gown matches and pudding and all that shit, which is, I mean, listen, I mean, I'm a guy, I like looking at it, but at the same time, like, as a wrestling fan, it was, now looking back at it, it was a waste of time.
Well, I think the women's...
It was underutilizing women who could actually have some talent.
Absolutely. And, I mean, the women's title hit rock bottom the moment that it went into Harvey Wimpleman. I mean, that was pretty much it. Or when the title changed hands on a bra and panties match or a bikini contest between Sable and Deborah, all because Sable was suing the WWE and she was fired.
Right.
Like, that's rock bottom right there.
Well, listen, I mean, you had your best, arguably, because I love Ivory. I've always loved Ivory, and obviously she's a Hall of Famer now, but your best, arguably, 1 and 1A is Chyna, and they didn't even have Chyna really. I mean, she was a women's champion for a cup of coffee, but she wrestled for men's titles. So that just showed you how much they valued that title, that they had to take. I mean, she was a beast of a woman, but they felt like she was too good for that, and they had to put her into being an Intercontinental champion and all.
That, and they did not have a Beth Phoenix or a Nia Jax at that time at all.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true, but I think we're going to take a break.
Okay.
We are going to take a break. If you joined us on Facebook, I want to thank you guys. If you joined us on Periscope, also thank you guys. We're going to take about a 5 to 6, 7 minute break. And quick Sixers update. It is 37-33 in the start of the second quarter.
No, it's not.
No,
they're just showing highlights.
It's
63-64.
As soon as I said that's why I paused. I was like, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, so it's 64-63.
See, Maddie, I'm not ignoring you because I'm actually
not
even in tune where the game's at.
You can't even keep track of the score of the game.
Guys, the link is going to be at the top in the caption section of this. Please join us. If you join us in the first half. For the second half, we're going to talk greatest Royal Rumble ever. We're going to talk a lot of news this week. We'll continue to talk Superstar Shakeup. You know, Bruno's passing. I'm going to tell you a story about Tim White now that we mentioned the Andre the Giant thing. So, all that coming over. Maddie, give us a read.
All right. Well, all this was brought to you by the Sports Outlet for all your sporting needs. They are located at 703 Black Horse Pike in Glendora, New Jersey. You give them a call at 856-939-2030, and you can email them at sportsoutletnj@comcast.net or visit them on the web at www.sportsoutletinc.com.
See you on YouTube, guys.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Lazy Booking right here in the BMW Atlantic City Studios here in Mount from New Jersey. Brought to you by Scanzano Sports Center, located in 5 Carnegie Plaza in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And you can give them a call at 856-889-3434 or visit them on the web at www.scanzanosports.com.
Woo! Welcome,
sweet.
Too sweet, guys. Welcome back to Lazy Booking live on YouTube. If you joined us from Facebook and made the jump, or on Periscope, thank you for making the jump. Thank you on YouTube. If you guys stuck with us, we're definitely gonna start running through your comments big time on here. I just saw a Von Hayes comment, but I think we were talking about athletes earlier that were hated. But yeah, our Scanzano Sports poll question, pretty simple, guys. We had a big week with the Superstar Shakeup. Who won out on the Superstar Shakeup? Was it Raw or SmackDown? We have that. We're going to talk. We'll continue to talk that. We're going to talk a few news things this week. We'll talk Rusev Day every day.
Rusev Day
in the news.
Rusev Day.
We're going to talk Bruno Sammartino's unfortunate passing. We're going to talk, obviously, we can't get through a week without talking John Cena and Nikki Bella. We got to at least touch on it. And we're going to get to your comments, and we're going to go right into the comments, Maddie. So why don't you go ahead and start running down on some of those comments.
All right, then. So going back into YouTube here, Frank Ironreg, who was mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show, his other comments are, Raw's going to 2 hours this fall. Don't know if that's a fact, but
well, it's an interesting point because if Fox gets Raw, I'm going to be interested, and it sounds like it's pretty close to a done deal.
Huh.
Although the original report was Fox was not renewing their deal with UFC, but now, from what I read today, that they're looking into a partnership with ESPN for UFC.
See, I heard ESPN. I also heard, I believe it was Spiker USA. We're looking at them as well.
Yeah, well, whatever channel Spike is, it's not Spike anymore, but that's where they run Bellator on.
Oh.
So that would be, I'd have to see what the status is with their deal with Bellator first, but that could be interesting. USA would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they're smart, I definitely would absolutely run with ESPN.
100%.
I mean, it's the big that's the big network when you talk sports. So, but yeah, no, it's an interesting idea. And then I've heard that floated out that could move to 2 hours. I don't think it'll happen. One thing you could do, you could still keep it 3 hours, but you could run the first hour on the network.
That's true. And then you go live for the next 2.
People are going to be pissed.
That's going to be
so.
You don't think so?
No.
See, it depends on what kind of fans are. See, it's going to be rough because of some people who don't have the network. And then on the other hand,
you got to have a selling point to get people on the network.
That is true.
This is my one counter to that. In my opinion, the product right now in WWE, the Vince McMahon product at least, they sell to casual fans.
Yes, they do.
So would a casual fan automatically have the network? I understand it would entice them to get the network, but they would then become more than a casual fan.
But if you're talking about a casual fan, that's the people that are kind of in and out of the program anyway. By having that network, you can appeal to, okay, you can start doing things like running major storylines. I'm not talking about the main event because you're going to save that for network television. But you can run things and have surprises happen in that first hour and say, see, you have to have the network to say it. That, and I mean, really, it gives the opportunity that you can still have that extra time slot for guys to work, and then you save the real big stuff for primetime television on Fox.
I mean, that's one way to do it, but if they're going to roll back an hour, I don't think they do that. I think they would roll back an hour before doing that, honestly.
In my opinion, I don't think they will ever go back to 2 hours.
I don't think they will either. There's too much money in it.
Well, I go back, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I believe it was an interview with Paul Heyman I listened to a handful of months ago. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of Vince McMahon will never do that because in that extra hour, that extra 3 hour program where everyone's saying, oh, it's so controversial, why not go back to 2? That's an hour of money. So the advertising, viewership.
And where you saw that, which you can see on the network, was the very first episode of Bring It to the Table with
thank you, Karam. There you go.
Rosenberg and JBL.
Yes.
That was a hotbed topic that they discussed, and you're absolutely right. There's too much money to leave on the table. Go ahead.
At their height of their power, WCW Nitro went to 3 hours. Mm-hmm. Now, they didn't necessarily have the time. They didn't have the storylines to fill those 3 hours, and that was abundantly clear.
But that's why they had cruiserweights and such.
Yes.
Now, the only thing that could make them go to 2 hours is if they sign with Fox, and their deal with Fox compensates for the loss of that hour, to where the money and the deal is so large to where it cancels out any loss they would have had by going from 3 to 2.
Yeah, and I know they went through on that topic on that show of some of the financial breakdown. It was a rough estimation. But when you talk about the money they make from sponsorship, and it's a publicly traded company, I say it all the time, guys. They need money from the sponsors. That's what drives the stock up. It's viewership, but it's also merchandise sales, which they will always have. It's having, even the house shows and stuff like that. That's more like merch sales and all that different stuff. It makes it affordable for families to go to. But the money is in the sponsorships, which is why they are a PG product. Now, Frank Ehrenreich did say with Paramount we can see PG-13, and he said actually it would be the third hour for the network. I think it would be the first hour, maybe. I mean, it depends on what Fox's schedule's like, just because it's kind of, you run into the risk of what you get with 205 Live running after SmackDown. The issues that they get with people being invested and sticking in, because they're going to run the main programs on the primary channel, on the primetime channel. So, if you see the conclusion to whatever's going to happen between, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and then you go away and then you flip over to the network, and that's when you're going to start seeing like the cruiserweight segments or whatever it is, people are going to be less invested. If you run it in the beginning as almost like a pre-show kind of a deal, it kind of gets you. It's a little bit more effective.
And I go back to attention spans nowadays to where they're puny. Everyone's attention span. I mean, it's almost non-existent. To me, if they really want to take advantage of that and really grasp the attention of those viewers, as long as they have them, you do it in that first hour, because going into hour 3, if those viewers hung on for the entirety of the first 2. That's a lot to ask. And this is going to sound crazy, but this is just the way it is now. For someone to say, I'm still invested, I'm going to switch off of this, and I'm going to go to the network. Because now we just know in media in general, the fewer clicks you have to make, the better. So WWE, going into its finale of an hour, would be asking you, switch off of this, go all the way to the network, log in, do whatever you need to do with that, and then be invested for that last hour. I feel that's a lot.
And Frank,
a lot to do.
Frank says local news at 9, Raw starts at 7. I'm assuming you're probably in a central time zone because it's on at 10 here. I'm not saying that they don't end the show at all at 10. I'm saying they run the first hour at 7, or in your case 6, and then start the show at 8.
Agreed.
As far as what's on broadcast. I don't see them going that late. And again, it's been proven they've already had a test run with 205 Live and SmackDown. It does not. It doesn't draw.
The biggest problem of that is that you're putting a C show, which is the Cruiserweight show, you are putting that right after the B show, which is stupid because it's just like, listen, I love Cruiserweight wrestling just as much as the next guy, but you are literally doing the major reasons why people are at the arena before, and then you're trying to get them to stay for the Cruiserweights after. Logic would tell you that if 205 Live is the equivalent of a Sunday Night Heat, you flip it, and you put 205 first, and you have SmackDown follow.
And with Raw, too, you have to remember that they, unlike SmackDown, they have a little bit of they try to run the unpredictability, and they do runovers on every show.
Yeah.
So they time slot it for, let's say they move to Fox 10:05, but if it runs 10:09 or 10:12, that happens. That's going to be part of the program. So, I mean, the news isn't going to start at 10 every night, every Monday night, probably.
Is on your point,
Sorry,
Maddie,
Frankie.
on
He
your
said call him
point,
Frankie.
what did he say?
He asked me to call him Frankie.
Oh, okay.
You got it, Frankie.
On your point, Maddie, about switching 205 Live from after SmackDown to before, while I agree with you, that would make sense in a way. In a way, it wouldn't, because for me, obviously, at the moment, SmackDown Live starts at 8 for us at least.
Right.
Then you would be saying, okay, crowd, get here at 7. I feel that would make it difficult with people getting off of work, if you're getting your kids. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's easier to establish, hey, we have to be there by 8 instead of we have to be there by 7.
Okay, then.
Which would mean you have to be there at 6:30 because concessions, lines, etc.
Okay. So then you cut it out altogether. 205 Live no longer tours with SmackDown. They sit where NXT is.
That was something he brought up.
And they do a show there. And the only reason I say that is because the crowd is usually very loud there. They usually react very well to any high-flying stuff. You actually will have wrestlers being a little bit more invested in their matches because they're not seeing empty seats. So, to me, there's a little bit more benefit of moving that down. That's why they put the Mae Young Classic there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have that touring with it. Yeah, they did the Mixed Match Challenge the same way. By the way, that being sandwiched in didn't help 205 Live at all, because then that's one other match that you watch prior to 205 Live happening. Right. But like I said, you don't have 205 Live then. They can still go on tour like NXT does, but they travel with NXT. They don't travel with the main show. That way, you don't worry about it at all. And if worse comes to worse, if you're running out of time to give guys opportunities on the shows, what was such a bad thing about having a Sunday Night Heat? They have something before that on Raw. They have the main event. It's one match, but it gives somebody an opportunity to go out there, and yeah, the arena's not full, but it gets them a chance to at least have something. They got something they can do. They're not sitting there in the back on their ass just wondering, like, I haven't been used on TV or used on anything in, like, a month. Yeah. And that's not a good thing. You want them to at least get utilized in some way.
Here's the point I'm going to make, too. We're used to wrestling and them being in a later primetime slot. But if you are in a city where there's sports that are around in those arenas, Sixers games start at 7 or 7:30. You got to be there at 6 or 6:30 anyway if you're trying to get there when doors open. It's really no different than what we're accustomed to in other venue or other avenues of sports or entertainment.
This would be my one counter. Is a Sixers or Flyers game a 3-hour event?
Flyers games can be.
It depends on whether if it's a regular season game, it may possibly cross 2 hours.
You're talking Phillies games, man. Phillies games start at 7:30, but some of them run to midnight.
Well, but not to get off topic, but what's the main storyline with what the MLB is trying to do? Speed up the game.
It never works. It only takes longer.
I agree. I agree, but you understand what I'm saying?
I hear you.
The one sport right now, as far as the main sports, other than football, obviously, but that's a different story, obviously.
Right.
The one sport, baseball, that eclipses that 2-hour window on a consistent basis is baseball. What's the main storyline? Oh, the game's too long.
But if you look at, what games are scheduled for, as far as just simply look at your cable grid when you pull it up, it's 7:30 to 10:30 typically is what a baseball game's already scheduled for. None of them end on time.
No.
Very, very, unless it's like a fucking pitching gem where these guys are mowing guys down or guys are swinging at second and third pitches and grounding out. No games end within. So I hear what you're saying.
I just use the basket. I don't consider baseball part of this argument because first off, you brought up basketball. And two, like I said, baseball is a whole nother element.
Why did basketball? Because I know some games start at like 7.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for number one with baseball, I feel first off, they don't start later because they don't want the games going to 1 in the morning.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think regardless, I think if you, again, are going to that casual viewer, younger obviously because it's the PG era, whether people want to agree with that or not.
No.
They're worrying about sponsors. I don't think they're going to go earlier because there's a whole nother element. The kids have to have dinner before you go. Oh, you can't eat at the game or at the SmackDown Live you know what I mean? There's a whole nother element to starting an hour earlier, and especially an hour and a half earlier because, like I said, nowadays, the thing starts at 7. We have to get there at 6:30 because we have to get the popcorn, the T-shirt, and the foam finger. You know what I mean? That's just the way it goes. Oh, and by the way, we have to beat traffic, so we have to get there at 6:15.
Speaking of the foam finger, I miss my Daniel Bryan foam figure.
Yeah, where is it? What's going on?
I was running really late for work, so
I
couldn't pack my package of goodies. Tito got the day off. Fuck him.
He had his time.
Yeah.
It was a shitty time too.
Well, then Frank went on to say, with that,
Frankie.
Frankie said, with that, will SmackDown go 3 hours? No. Actually, I don't think there will ever be a time SmackDown goes 3 hours. And that's sad to say because there is enough talent on there to try it, but they'll never do it.
At this point, there's enough talent.
Yeah, at this point. But the problem is that they won't do it because, as it's always been, and I think that won't change even when Vince kicks the bucket, Raw's the A show, SmackDown's the B show. Everything else past that, no one gives a damn. It's as simple as that.
Agreed. With SmackDown, real quick because I did not get to touch on that. With SmackDown, what I like about SmackDown, they needed names. And I believe that those names are going to also be used to enhance the secondary titles. Jeff Hardy's a huge name. They've talked about giving him a strong singles push. You take him away from the Wyatt situation. You had that kind of little interaction on Raw. Then you move him over to SmackDown. And by the way, he's now holding the U.S. title. So you are bringing kind of prominence back to those secondary titles. Not to say that it hasn't because they've been trying to put it on guys like Orton and Bobby Roode. But you continue that trend and give all those main event guys have another major title to now compete for.
I have a prediction, by the way, with Jeff Hardy.
What's that?
Would you like me to tell you who he will be dropping the title belt to?
I think it's going to be Jinder Mahal.
Andrade Cien Almas.
We'll see.
That will be the feud.
And I know you were talking about Cien earlier. Here's what when I look at Cien, there was rumors that in the beginning of March, Vince had a conversation with Alberto Del Rio. Whatever reason, Vince has a hard-on for Alberto. No matter how absolutely toxic he is for the company.
It's the biceps.
It could be.
Let him go. Just let him go.
And this is obviously before everything that went down WrestleCon and everything over WrestleMania weekend when he got terminated by Impact. But which doesn't say a lot for you when Impact is terminating you for like the second time. You've been suspended and now you're terminated.
I actually, to be completely honest with you, I forgot he was still employed by them. I thought he was already fired.
Yeah.
My mistake.
So when you look at that, I feel like Cien has been now positioned to be what they wanted Del Rio to be because they want to have a strong Mexican figure, especially when they do their tours down in Mexico, a guy who's a very strong main eventer. And NXT Brooklyn TakeOver, him and Gargano, the first match they had, that match, he stepped it up to another level, and he has not turned back since. Was that a 3-ball?
I think that's Anderson.
First
off, why is he in the game too? How is he making shots?
That's okay. We'll take him.
Score update, 93-90 Sixers.
With 30 seconds left in the third period.
Let's go.
But you talk about, to me, I think they view him as that guy. And I strongly believe they're going to give him a very strong push in a main event picture.
Agreed.
So, but SmackDown, I like what they're doing. I like that they didn't put Sanity with the Hardys because that's one of those, we're going to get the obvious kind of screwy thing, which we thought at one point we were going to probably see the Hardys and Sanity so that they can continue to do those,
it would be
the deletion
it would be
videos.
The broken/woken Hardys versus Decay. I mean Sanity.
Yeah.
Round 2.
I like Sanity though, and I think that they're going to be strong. And here's the thing too. They don't have enough factions left in wrestling. Here's what I don't like. Okay, let me touch on this.
I know where you're going.
Missed opportunities. I think Seth would have been great for them. Either Seth or Finn. We've talked about that. One or the other on SmackDown would have been absolutely huge. You talk about dream matches and dream feuds, specifically at this point now, Finn and AJ, Finn and Daniel Bryan. You get Seth and AJ, Seth and Daniel Bryan. Those alone right there. Or now Jeff Hardy's over there. Throw Jeff Hardy in with those guys who moved over with him because you haven't seen the feud on Raw. You can carry that out on SmackDown.
You have a 3-way war. I know they don't really count the NXT towards WWE, but you can have a 3-way war between 3 former NXT champions and Nakamura, Balor, Rollins.
Correct. Absolutely. I didn't like that. I mean, a lot of people thought Braun was going to move. There's no way they were taking Braun off. There's no way they were. There's no way they're taking Roman Reigns off of the A show.
Who thought Braun was going?
I've heard it, but there was no way they were going to take those guys off the A show.
No.
But I feel like that was a big missed opportunity. And what I don't like, you just put the Balor Club together, similar to when they did the club with AJ. A month or two later, they have the shakeup and they break them up. I miss having factions in wrestling, and they don't have enough of them now.
See, here's the thing. I think that Vince particularly doesn't like factions for one reason only. Remember back when they had a ton of factions in 97? And remember how terrible they were? Now, that's not because of the fact that the factions are bad. It was just, who the hell did you put in the factions? You had the Los Boricuas, led by freaking Savio Vega. Vega's the only good worker out of all of them.
Yeah.
On top of that, one of the guy looks like Chewbacca because he had hair all over him.
Yeah.
Like, who else? I mean, you had the Truth Commission, and you had Kurgan, like the big 7-foot monster who did nothing the entire time.
Kurgan.
I know, I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel, but
Kurgan,
this was
who's
97.
like a stuntman now, like a legitimate stuntman in Hollywood now.
God.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well.
The Oddities, that went nowhere, you know.
Yeah. Who was also Kurgan was also
Kurgan was in that,
and
along
John
with
Tenta.
Yeah, and Golga. You know, like just oh my God, like just every time they ever did factions, they did them wrong. The only faction they got right was DX for the most part because they let DX do what DX wanted to do for the most part.
Well, you had the Nation of Domination.
That too. They were the good ones.
You had the Hart Foundation.
Yeah, and that was good because of the heel thing. And there weren't all bad, but there was just a lot of them, and then a lot of them started to spoil it, and then that's what killed it in the end of the day. I think that's why I still think Vince is sold on that he's just like, it didn't work the last time. I don't want too many factions.
Later, you had
now.
the Straight Edge Society, which was fucking awesome.
Yeah, but that was the one faction that was going around at that time. They never really had another faction besides that. The same thing with the Nexus. Besides the core, which was just another form of the Nexus, they never had an actual faction that was against them. You know? It's never been a faction war since 97.
What, you're talking about Bret Hart and Jorts at SummerSlam wasn't a formidable group that he put together to go against them?
Oh, I mean, but you know, the Jorts are the Jorts, man. They win a lot of championships. Just ask John Cena.
Oh,
you know, I mean, how many titles did he won in Jorts?
That's
Good
true.
God.
But you know, I like that. There's a lot of main eventers that listen. They needed it because I know some people loved SmackDown. I felt like after the last shakeup, I felt like it was really rough to watch. I could get through SmackDown in 35 to 40 minutes.
It was almost like
too much filler.
It was a complete purge of SmackDown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when they established SmackDown is the B show.
Oh, yeah, because they knew SmackDown. They knew they fucked up when they did the draft because SmackDown was actually exciting and was actually beating Raw. And they realized, oh, shit, we got to change that, and we got to change that now.
I remember when they did the initial Superstar Shakeup, when they introduced Mick Foley as the, you know, what was he technically? The Raw GM.
He was the GM, and the commissioner was Stephanie McMahon.
And then that's when Daniel Bryan became GM.
GM, and Shane McMahon was
Shane.
yeah.
And I remember you guys on the happy hour were discussing it. And when you guys used to talk about wrestling at the
in
very
the
end,
off season,
yes.
yeah.
And I remember I called in on
Yes,
the one.
you did.
And we were talking about, okay, which one's going to be the better show? Because that's when they were really back and forth on, who's going to get better ratings. When for like 2 months, they were like, okay, we're actually rivals, even though we work for the same company.
Yeah.
And I was so excited for SmackDown. I actually said my favorite show at the time was SmackDown, and then it just went away. At this moment, this is the most excited I've been for SmackDown since then. And maybe I might be more excited for it now, given you just look at who's on it. I mean, you have Joe. You have Nakamura, Styles. I mean, you're going to have Almas, pretty soon. I can go on a list. I can continue going. You have the friggin' Iconics on there. I could seriously talk about this for an hour, just saying how many guys. Asuka, you kept Charlotte. You have Hardy. You know what I'm saying? You have Daniel Bryan that's back. Hell, you have Paige. You know what I mean? You have everybody.
Now, to be honest with you, I'm actually a little surprised they did not put Daniel Bryan on Raw, only because the A show. And yeah, Daniel Bryan has more history on SmackDown, but I'm not surprised Raw just decided not to put the screws to SmackDown. It's like, fuck you guys. You don't get Daniel Bryan now that he's wrestling. We're taking Daniel Bryan, and we're going to do the Miz and Bryan.
Well,
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised they didn't do that.
See, I'm not. I figured he was going to stay there. He just came back. I didn't see that.
Yeah, but I could see them just saying, fuck you, SmackDown.
Well, the thing with Daniel Bryan, before Daniel Bryan got hurt last, Daniel Bryan's whole thing was, he wanted to build the Intercontinental title, and he wanted to build SmackDown.
That is true.
And he was very vocal about that. I think they wanted to move him to Raw, and he ended up staying on there. But you're right, absolutely, Ryan. You got guys like Samoa Joe, and if you've seen any of those, and we talked about it before, those old Ring of Honor feuds from the early and mid 2000s.
Oh, in their prime.
Wow.
Yeah.
You talk about Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and Bryan Danielson. A lot of those feuds were freaking awesome to watch.
And the sad part of it is, when you look back at all of it, and we can rip TNA all we want, the one good thing that TNA did was shed light on these guys.
Absolutely.
Because WWE had them and did nothing with them.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move. Well, no. The last thing I want to touch on with the pay-per-views, right? One thing, I think it's why Society Wrestling. They said that SmackDown won hands down. And also said, I heard B-level pay-per-views are going to be 4 hours now. That could be possible. It's a network. They can do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it as I know you were talking about how many times or how many matches are you going to have on these pay-per-views and how late are they going to run. What I hope is they're going to get it back to what it used to be like back in the day, to where not every feud needs to be on every pay-per-view, and they can pick and choose what's going to be on this B-level one, what's going to be on this, and let the feuds build and breathe a little bit. You don't need to see the Intercontinental title on every pay-per-view. You could do every other or every third or however you want to do them. You don't have to see – you're obviously going to see probably the world title on every one and the WWE title and the Universal, but I think you have the opportunity now to let some of these feuds breathe and actually build instead of – rushing and then seeing 4 matches between the tag teams in a month and a half or 2 months. So that's what I like. Sixers update, 103.95, 10 minutes left in the fourth.
Freaking running away with it.
I think that the whole situation with them doing the dual-branded pay-per-views now and everything like that, it is an opportunity for them, because that is one thing that was killing them. They only had, 3 weeks? 4 weeks? No. 2 at most to build up. SmackDown actually had the advantage in that because their pay-per-views came later in the month. Raw's literally was the moment after the main pay-per-view was done. Boom, you got to set it for the next one.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be beneficial. We'll touch on those news points because we got a little under 10 minutes left to go. Obviously, this week Bruno Sammartino passed away the other day, or was it yesterday or 2 days ago? My times are.
It was yesterday.
Yeah,
it was yesterday.
Bruno Sammartino passed away. Guy's a freaking legend, obviously.
Yeah. Do you think he goes down as where would you think he ranks in the greatest WWE champions of all time? I mean he's got to be in the top 5 because he really set and the whole era is based around him.
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends on, it's different strokes for different folks. I'd put him in the top 10. It's an era of wrestling that I've gone back and watched And I think he was amazing in what he did. He was definitely a draw and attraction. And I know that he was a bit of a pioneer. You know, you talk about he was essentially an immigrant who came over and from nothing and built himself to be a main event attraction at Madison Square Garden. And now, I mean, how long did he hold the title for? What's like 8 years or something along those lines?
Yeah.
Over
7, 8 years?
2,000 days, I believe.
Yeah, it was some crazy number.
And
he holds the record.
And that was going to be the main thing I touched on. You know, to your question, Maddie, on where we would rank him, I feel like it would be unfair to rank him, not because he doesn't, you know, not because he's number one or not because he doesn't, you know, make the top 10. It's because there's no other superstar like him.
Ever.
Yeah.
Just because, if nothing else, because of that streak, because of how long, because he symbolizes a type of superstar and an era of wrestling we will never see again. And I know that's very cliche to say, oh, there'll never be. No, you will never see not only something like that again, anything close to that ever again. No one will hold a title anything close to that length.
Yep.
Hell, if someone holds it for a year, that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
That's even rare.
And you talk about guys who are pioneers.
Yes.
I mean, even just his effect on pop culture, guys like Schwarzenegger who looked up to him, who I mean, he was a guy that people grew up looking at him because of his build and kind of what he was billed as the Italian from coming out of Pittsburgh and all that stuff. And then even just today's pop culture, Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars was named, his name, Bruno Mars, is his entertainment name, is because when he was a kid, they watched wrestling, and his dad always said he looked like Bruno Sammartino as a kid. Like,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
And Bruno Mars tweeted out that, you know, it was an honor that he got to meet him, and that, you know, it transcended just him, but it reminded him of days of him and his father. So,
and it really shows as well, because obviously, you know, I guess of the show I represent the younger generation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To where I remember growing up as a fan. Obviously, he was way before my time, before all of our times.
Yeah.
I always knew who Bruno Sammartino was.
which says a lot about him because of the friction between him and WWE and WWF and Vince and the product, particularly when the Attitude Era was around. He really was turned off. Because of that, to still know who he is says a lot, because you didn't have as much exposure with the internet and all that stuff at that point. And I mean, I was there at WrestleMania 2013 when he went into the Hall of Fame. And, you know, I'm happy. Now I look at it and I'm proud of that. It was a wonderful class that he was the headliner of.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best, if not the best overall class they had. And
probably you know, he's right up there with one of the most deserving men.
To be in the building that, for all intents and purposes, in entertainment at that time was one of the biggest draws in Madison Square Garden's history.
Mm-hmm.
And have him finally take his place, it's a cool thing that I can at least say I was there to see. You know?
I mean, without Bruno making the territory when it was a territory,
it was still a territory, the New York territory with Big Senior.
When it became, the reason why it became such a big money capital was in no small part to Bruno Sammartino. He was that much of an attraction that people would pay top dollar to go every week to Madison Square Garden to see that man wrestle either somebody like Killer Kowalski or any of the number of people they would go find from the territories. All of them, or some of the guys from that territory that were the big rivals for him.
Yeah,
at
I mean,
that time.
he was a legend in and of his time. And to what you said, and then we'll touch on one more thing after this. I almost don't put him in it either, because to me he was something totally different. He is in a class of his own. And I almost don't think it's fair to him. I'm not by me saying that. I'm not saying I think he was the greatest ever either, but it's so hard when you compare what it is now to what it was then. But what he meant, not just in wrestling, to pop culture, to sit there and say the greatest WWE or F champion, whatever. He was just a different kind of an animal, a different person.
And to be fair, maybe more like a pillar. You know, he's one of the pillars of wrestling.
There's only one other superstar in WWE history that I could say I can't put him in my top 10 because he has his own category. There's only two. It's Bruno Sammartino and it's Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
Those are the only two.
Absolutely. And speaking of Andre, I will tell that Tim White story.
Yes.
I did. You love when I name drop. It was just a regular signing, but I went into a page signing.
Mm-hmm.
Tim White is always here with the talent. So I saw Tim coming out, and I said, Tim, and he's so friendly. I said, Tim, I just want to tell you, I watched the Andre documentary, and I want to tell you how wonderful I thought it was. And his expression just changed, very invested in like the conversation. And he was like, thank you so much. And a few things he said I thought were really interesting, because he said, what I'm most proud of is, he said, for the generation that knew of him or got to watch him, they got to see a guy and really what he went through day to day and see a whole different view of what life was like to be him. And he said for the people who've heard of him but really don't know much about him, they were introduced to one of the greatest legends of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he actually got emotional talking to me.
Wow.
And he said, my biggest thing with that was I was able to, he said, what I took away from that made me the absolute happiest was people finally got to really know my friend.
Wow.
And that was exactly the way he put it. And he started getting teary-eyed. And so I gave him a hug. I was like, I just wanted you to know, it was a wonderful thing. And I said, he was a little bit late in his career. I was around the WrestleMania 3 time when I can remember earliest back in wrestling for me watching. But I said, it's amazing what he went through and having people like you around him. He loved it. So anyway, I wanted to definitely drop that in. And it was cool seeing the documentary and then getting to talk to him about it. So, obviously, we didn't really get to touch on John and Nikki.
Well, I was going to say, in 30 seconds.
John's a coxman, man. John loves it. John loves it. He's got the reputation. The one thing I'll say about it, obviously, now it's coming out. The Brie Bella stuff, A, if she's pissed at him, she has every right to be. It's her sister. B, the guy apparently told her that he was willing to have kids, and then in about face 2 weeks before the wedding. So, you know what? It sucks. It's a shame. I actually really liked them together. It is what it is. She's single. Hey, what's up, Ray? How you doing?
Dolph he's having a good week. That's all
he
I'm
is
gonna
having
say.
a good week. Jesus Christ.
He goes to Raw, and now his former girlfriend is not getting married.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to hit the bed.
Yeah. So, Maddie's going to give us a read. Just an FYI, we are not going to be on next week because of the NFL draft. So, we'll come back to you 2 weeks from now. So, thank you for joining us this week. If you were on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, we'll have a lot to talk about, a lot of things unfolding coming up. Maddie, give a read.
All right, then. This lazy booking was brought to you by Gibson Mayer LLC, your certified public accountants. They are located at 301 Oxford Valley Road in Yardley, PA. And you can give them a call at 215-369-3300. Hey, remember, if you got an extension, do the right thing. Be ready, be prepared, call Gibson Mayer.
And I just got to read it because he just dropped it in. Frankie's totally trolling me because they should bring Tito Santana back for the IC title. Fuck Tito, Frankie.
I agree, Frankie.
No, Frankie.
Arriba.
Guys, thanks for joining us. 2 weeks from now, remember, NFL draft next week, we're off, all right? Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.